Today, we're going to dive into the psychology behind why some people just genuinely prefer their own company. And we're going to uncover why this isn't some kind of flaw, but actually one of the most misunderstood strengths a person can have.
Okay, let me ask you something. Does this sound familiar? You get an invitation, and your first secret thought isn't about what you're going to wear, but it's about that sweet, sweet relief you'd feel if it suddenly got called off. If that hits home for you, well, you are in exactly the right place.
Now, the immediate assumption, from other people, maybe even from yourself, is that something must be wrong. But let's just clear the air right away. This preference for quiet isn't necessarily a sign that you're depressed.
And nope, it's not automatically social anxiety either. Social anxiety, that's really rooted in a fear of being judged. But what we're talking about today is something else entirely. It's not about being afraid.
In fact, what if I told you that this preference for solitude isn't just okay? It can be an incredibly healthy trait, a sign that you're actually thriving, not just struggling to get by. All right, so first things first, we have to tackle the most crucial distinction of all, the huge difference between being lonely and simply being alone. Honestly, they are worlds apart. You see, loneliness is a painful wound. It's that awful feeling of being disconnected when you don't want to be. But being alone, that can be a deliberate choice, a state of being you actively go looking for because it actually serves you. And that's where the strength lies. For decades, psychology just didn't really have a good way to describe this. So anyone who enjoyed a bit of solitude got slapped with all these labels, right? Introvert, loner, or, and this is the worst one, antisocial, as if enjoying your own company meant you were just one bad day away from a supervillain origin story. But that whole assumption was just wrong. Researchers eventually came up with a much, much better term, unsociability. And no, it's not what it sounds like. It's not about being hostile towards other people or fearfully avoiding them. It is simply a calm, confident preference for your own company. So if it's not hostility and it's not fear, what in the world is it? Well, to find out, we have to look at what's happening on a neurological level. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, because the answer is hiding in your brain's unique reward system. It really comes down to your dopamine system. See, extroverts need a ton of stimulation. Loud music, big crowds, constant chatter to get that dopamine hit and feel good. But people who love solitude, they have a much more sensitive system. I want you to think of it like spice tolerance. An extrovert needs to eat a whole jalapeno to feel the kick. But you just need a tiny pinch of chili flakes and you're perfectly satisfied. Anything more is just overwhelming. But wait, it's not just about getting overwhelmed easily. There's another, much more powerful thing happening here. When you're alone, a specific part of your brain isn't shutting down. It's actually firing up. Your prefrontal cortex gets to work. And what does the prefrontal cortex do? Oh, just all the heavy lifting. Deep thinking, creativity, self-reflection, and complex problem solving. It thrives in the quiet because that cognitive load of just processing social cues is gone. Without that constant background noise, your brain has way more resources for its most profound work. You're not empty. You are deeply engaged. And this neurological activity, it actually explains a phenomenon that we've seen for centuries. Breakthrough ideas almost never happen in crowded boardrooms. They happen in solitude. I mean, listen to Albert Einstein. He famously championed this idea. He totally understood that to connect all those complex thoughts in his head, he first needed to disconnect from the noise of the world. He had to create that quiet space for his mind to truly ignite. And he was not alone in this. Isaac Newton was also famously solitary for the exact same reason. His world-changing work required a level of focus that was just impossible to achieve with constant social interruptions. And I love this more modern example. The brilliant Maya Angelou, who was a very social person, would deliberately rent these bland, empty hotel rooms just to write in. Isn't that fascinating? It just goes to show that solitude isn't about emptiness. It's about creating the mental space for something new and amazing to be born. Okay, but here's where we have to be really honest. There is a critical distinction to make. We have to understand the difference between healthy, chosen solitude and using solitude as a place to hide. So, I want you to ask yourself this question and really be honest. When you seek out that alone time, are you running towards something like creativity and restoration, or are you running away from something like a fear of connection?
The psychologist Abraham Maslow framed this perfectly. Healthy solitude, he said, comes from a place of abundance. You choose it because you can connect with other people, but right now you just need to recharge. Hiding in solitude, on the other hand, comes from a place of scarcity, a feeling that you can't connect, so being alone is just a less painful, more protective alternative. The outcome of one is restoration. The outcome of the other is just protection. Now, when you learn to embrace healthy solitude from that place of strength, it completely redefines your relationship with others, and maybe most importantly, with yourself. Society sells us this big romantic idea, right? You complete me. That we're all just incomplete halves searching for someone else to make us whole. Well, people who are comfortable with solitude, they fundamentally reject this. Not because they're arrogant, but because they're self-aware. They already feel whole all on their own. And here is the beautiful paradox in all of this. Research from UC Santa Barbara actually found that people who are genuinely comfortable being alone don't have weaker relationships. They often have stronger ones. Why? It's because they choose to connect with people. They don't cling to them out of neediness. The quality of their alone time directly improves the quality of their social time. So if you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this. You are not weird. You are not broken. You are not antisocial. Your brain is simply wired for a different kind of restoration. You're self-restoring. So the final question really isn't what's wrong with me. The real question is, now that I know this is a strength, how am I going to use it? Will you use it to create something, to think deeply, to solve a complex problem, or just to restore yourself so you can show up better for the world? The choice is all yours. Thanks for tuning in.